I'm always fascinated by because probability will always say you'll have an off game at some point, and sometimes that comes at the worst possible moment. She's been killing it consistently, match in and match out.
Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I am Alicia J, and I'm here with Ashley Nicole Moss.
Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing? It's been a long week. We're here.
A very long week.
Has had a very hectic day. She came on frazzled, took a couple of deep breaths, and we're here. We're good. We're ready to go.
We're here. It's weird. Last night, I get migraines from time to time. I used to get them a lot more, but I get them very rarely now. But last night or yesterday, I had such a good day. My friend Fran was in town. We walked the lake, had brunch, favorite coffees, all the fun stuff.
And then when what was it? What's the flavor
the yam latte from Red Bay Coffee. Girl, you don't even know. You need to try it, okay? Red Bay Coffee is a local Oakland. I'm in the Bay Area, so it's a local Oakland coffee. But regardless, had a great day. Later on, she left later on. Bam, migraine hit me. I was just out. So when I woke up this morning, it was like Monday hit me hard just because I was out Sunday night. You know what I mean? Resting up. So a little frazzled today, but you know what? I'm so excited and glad that we're here, Ashley. Because we have a lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about. A lot.
The sports are sporting, okay? Yes. And the NWSL had a big weekend with the quarterfinals giving everything, literally everything that we needed the quarterfinals to give us. South Carolina matched history with its win streak, which we're definitely going to dive into a little bit later. Fantastic win streak, just amazing to watch. Coco Gauff, I don't know if you've been seeing all of the highlights. Yes.
Sure have.
Well, she made history yet again, and we're going to talk all about that. It involves a little bit of money, okay? Show me my money. You know what I'm saying? And then we're going to sit down with some NFL legends, literally. And this week's Connecting Changes Everything. It was something Ashley and I got to do. We can't wait to share it with you. And then Lily Yohannes, she made a huge decisions. I can't even say it. It was so huge, I can't even say it. She made a commitment. Yeah, she made a commitment to the USWNT, and we have to dive into that because it was so huge. So I cannot wait. I mean, it's much needed, and I'm just happy to be here talking sports with you, Ashley.
And likewise, girl. But before we get into all of that, we got to do some housekeeping. The regular schmegular, as we say in New York. Right here, you can find all of our social channels, whether that's Alicia and I as individuals or the pages, socials. We're on all of your major social media accounts, so make sure you are following and you are tapped in with us so you don't miss a minute of our content. We're also on YouTube, so make sure you are subscribed. You got those notifications turned on because that's where we post previous episodes of the pod, longer form versions of the interviews that we tease in the pod, and extra special things that we do throughout the sports calendar. But if you are not a podcast watcher, you're more of a listener, we got you covered there too. Make sure you scan this QR code and we will pop up wherever you get your pods. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, so there's no reason to not be tapped in with us right here at We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T.
No reason at all. You definitely don't want to miss anything that we have to talk about, especially with the NWSL quarterfinals. Fantastic on every level. There was plenty of action. Gotham, Washington, Kansas City, and Orlando all taking home wins, which is huge. Orlando was the only team with a multi-goal win, beating Chicago 4-1. Every other team took home a narrow or comeback, 1-goal wins against their opponents. So
great games, great matches, rather.
Great matches to watch for sure. The players of the weekend, Washington Spirit's Tara McKeown, scored a game-tying goal. But one thing I wanted to talk about, obviously her play was just amazing. It was in the 86th minute against Bay FC to send it to extras. But one thing I really want to talk about with her is in the post game, she got really emotional because she missed her sister's wedding for the game. Yeah, she missed her sister's wedding.
Tough.
Yeah, and she said because of that, she was definitely not missing it to lose. Okay. She was
I know
like,
that's it.
it was all for a good reason. She, her sister reposted it in the stories and just said she loved her. So yeah, here it was. The repost is right here. So proud of you, T. I love you. And that's hard. One thing about being an athlete, sometimes you're gonna miss stuff, man. Like, and it
Yeah.
sucks. And a
What
wedding
would
is
you do in
really,
that
really
situation?
hard.
I'm curious. I've always
Well,
I love one of my favorite games to play with like people that like I'm cool with is like would you rather type games or like would you for $50 million do X, Y, and Z, right? Because I am like a psychology junkie and I always tell this story all the time. Like if I wasn't in sports, I would have been like a criminal psychologist just because I'm so fascinated by like the mind and like what people's breaking points are.
I
And
can
there's like
see it.
there's a philosophy in psychology basically that everybody has a price, right? You just don't know it until that's presented to you, right? But in a lesser dramatic version of that ideology, like I always wondered like what I would do in the situation because God willing, you only get married once and you meet
Mm-hmm.
your person and you're locked in for life and you don't get that moment back. You know what I mean? Like in a perfect world, you can play in another championship. Like you think about NBA players or WNBA players, for example, who like their spouse is pregnant and goes into labor. Like, do you miss the games to see the birth of your first child? Like, what would you do in that situation? I'm curious.
A child, yes, for sure. I would
Okay.
have to do it. And we've seen that time and time again, right? But I think with a wedding, it's kind of like one of those things where yes, it's huge and it's your
Right.
sister, but the team doesn't see it that way. They're like, it's the semifinals. We paying you, so you about to come. Like you gonna see the
That's your
the
sister.
wedding video. Yeah. So I don't even know if she really truly had a choice, to be honest with
Mm-hmm.
you, in this situation. I will say I think it's kind of when you have this soccer star that is obviously going to be playing and you hope to
Mm-hmm.
towards the championship, it's kind of interesting that they would even have a wedding during that time. But I know there's all these other circumstances surrounding a wedding that you can't control either. So
Right.
I would nah, I'd have to go with the team on that one. I mean, love you, sis,
Which is
for
ironic,
real.
but
Yeah. I
maybe
just
semifinal setup. I
yeah,
completely
man.
make it.
Yeah. What would you do?
That's so tough, right? Obviously, I'm an only child, so like it's hard for me to even think sister. Um, like I'm trying to think, even my best friends, like I remember being devastated. One of my best friends from like elementary school got married and I had hurt my foot and I couldn't go. I ended up going to the ER that day. And I was looking forward to her wedding for like weeks. I did her bridal shower, I did her engagement party, I did her bachelorette. And like I was there when she met her husband and like I was part of their whole story. So I was devastated when I couldn't go to that wedding. So I'm like, if I had a sister, knowing how devastated I was as like a close friend, I don't know. Like I'm so big on family and I'm so big on like moments and like birthdays and holidays and just because like nothing you can't take anything for granted. Life can be so short. It can change in an instant. And I don't know, like the competitor in me and like the Capricorn in me is like, nah, I gotta go for the bag. I gotta go for the chip. But like the sentimental mushy side of me is like, yo, my sister's getting married. Like she's only gonna get married, God willing, once. Like I know, like I'm kind of torn. Look,
Yeah.
I might lean. I don't know. I knowing me, I probably like go with the game, but I would be sick about it. Like I'd
Yeah.
be sick. Yeah,
Well, and she definitely was. I mean,
yeah,
if when you watch that clip, she was, in almost full tears telling them that she missed this wedding. So,
yeah. That's
she was torn. She was, but she definitely scored that goal and she got her team, helped to get her team the win.
for sure.
So, worth it? I would say so. But,
Could you imagine if you lost? I would have been sick. I shouldn't have been here anyway. Damn it.
right. Well, she
You
made
know.
sure. Another person that made sure that their team did well this weekend was Temwa Chawinga, scored the lone goal in Casey's 1-0 win over North Carolina. Her first ever NWSL playoff goal. She now has 18 goals in the last 16 matches in the NWSL, which is insane. Absolutely insane. What are your thoughts on, what Temwa is doing and, how she's not helping that team, but in many ways leading that team?
Yeah. I mean, insane. I think when we were previewing these different matches, we put her as our X factor, and rightfully so. Outside of just like the home environment of Kansas City and all of that, she is a huge reason for the success of this team. Not surprised that carried over into the semifinals. It's just, I'm always fascinated by because probability will always say you'll have an off game at some point, and sometimes that comes at like the worst possible moment. She's been killing it consistently, match in and match out. So more power to her. Listen, flowers, bow down, all that good stuff. You keep killing it, girl.
Yeah, she definitely deserves it all. So moving to the semis, we got Orlando versus Kansas City and Washington versus Gotham. I have an idea of what you're going to say in the second matchup, but let's start with Orlando versus Kansas City. Who do you see moving forward in that matchup?
I'm going to go with, I know I was just talking about home crowd advantage and all that stuff, but I believe in Orlando's ability to take their talent and for it to travel well. They have one win over KC this season, so it's not like they haven't beaten this team before. And I like the Pride. I think that's a really well-rounded, well-constructed team from multiple angles. I'm going to go with the Pride, and you already know I'm going with the second one. New York all day, every day. So don't even bother asking me. Who you got?
Yeah, I wasn't going to bother asking you, actually. So we already know. We are very clear on that one. But I would definitely say Orlando for the same reasons. While both teams are, or they were both undefeated at one point, Orlando actually, you talked about the win, they ended KC's unbeaten streak. And that's like a huge thing. And you do remember that. So you would think that Kansas City would come in with, a little bit more behind them, and you would think I would go that way. But just given the season that Orlando has had, the team, like you said, is incredibly solid, has done monumental things. So I'm going to Orlando on that one. And Ashley, I'm going to have to agree with you on Gotham as well. And I think, maybe just being on this podcast with you, I'm becoming more of a New York fan just because, how could I not? We talk about them every
day. Our goal as New Yorkers to convert people to our side.
So. Right. So you feel like you're really winning right now. But
I'm down for the cause.
But when I do look at this season, look at Gotham, look at the team they have, the players that they have, I just really feel like, and kind of like the momentum they have right now too, I just feel like they will get that win over Washington. So I guess we gonna find out if we were right, and we will for sure talk about that on the next pod. So
we will. And a team we're going to be talking about a lot on this pod for the next few months, South Carolina women's basketball, number 1, South Carolina women's basketball, because on Sunday they recorded their 40th straight win. Not a typo. You heard me say that correctly. 40 of them things in a row.
Insane.
Over NC State with a 71-57 triumph. They become just the second D1 team to reach multiple 40-game winning streaks, joining, as we know, the legendary UConn Huskies. UConn had a 40-game winning streak 4 times. Just want to let everyone soak that in. That dominance is crazy.
It is so crazy.
Win streak, 40-game win streak 4 times. That's insane. They've had a 70-game, 90-game, and 111-game streak that included 2 national championships dated from 2014 until 2017. That is dominance at its highest threshold. I'm just in awe of that stat every time I see it, every time I read it. The streak was ended in 2017, the Final Four against Mississippi State. The streak spanned 867 days. Okay. 867 days of pure dominance. The team had 108 double-digit wins during that streak, is 23 more wins than the men's record of 88 set by UCLA from 70 to 74. Post game, this is what was said about just the dominance of South Carolina. It's everything, just togetherness. We love each other. We win together. We don't lose together, but we do just everything together. I love it. Flex. Over the last 3 years, one more thing. Over the last 3 years, the Gamecocks have lost just 3 games and have won 2 national titles. The next big test obviously will come against number 5 UCLA on November 24th, then number 8 Iowa State on November 28th. Alicia, insanity.
Yes. It is insanity. And I also want to point out that quote that you had from Full Wiley is
Full Wiley, excuse me.
Yeah, but it's wild because Full Wiley has yet to experience a collegiate loss. Okay? The team went 38-0 in her freshman season. So she has not experienced a loss. So when she says that we don't lose together, they really don't in her world because they never have. Obviously, as you should. I'm about to dust all the shoulders, flex losing? In every single way. Period.
I don't even know how to spell losing.
Excuse me, what is that?
Yeah.
But, when you think about, what UConn did, phenomenal. Definitely, the best, the greatest winning streaks in NCAA history for sure. And what South Carolina doing is definitely one of those too. What I will say is when it comes to, will they continue the streak, right? Because that's what you automatically think of when you're talking about how amazing it has been. An amazing accomplishment, but I believe, and this is no knock to the program, because what Dawn is doing and will continue to do is phenomenal. But I do believe that the winning streak will end this season. But with that said, I think it would be a good thing for some of the players on the team because when you do keep winning, right, it's great. It's amazing. But when you're trying to repeat a natty, kind of overcoming the loss is like a really good thing on the way there. Like kind of knowing what it's like and knowing how to overcome it is a good thing. And then when you look at the teams and in college and how good they are this year and how good they have become, in the process of what's happening in women's college basketball, you're going to get it every single night. And so it's just, I think, the UCLA is coming up. I want to say Iowa State is coming up on November 28th. They have some really good opponents coming. And I just really think that somebody is going to get their number this season, but that it will be good for them ultimately when it goes to actually repeating the championship again.
I definitely agree with you. And I think that there's something to be said too. When you look at UConn's dominance from 2014 to 2017, I think it's also very important to note the landscape of college basketball for women, right? And just as a whole, really, right? When you go back to that era, which at this point is over 10 years ago, or will be over 10 years ago if you're going to start from 2014, because there was no NIL, you only had certain programs that were the top dogs. It was the UNC, it was the UConn, it was the Dukes. It was those type of schools that got all the best high school prospects to go ahead and commit to them because why? They knew that was the biggest stage that they would be on in order to then hopefully make it to the draft. When you look at the landscape of college basketball now, because of things like NIL, because of just the influx of social media and how social media has taken over just influencers and brands and the intersection between sports and everything else, business, it's not so heavily reliant on these prospects to go to the biggest and the best. Obviously, you still want to go to a program that can win and has a history of winning. But if you can't get into a UConn with your skill set and you go to, and this is no knock because UCLA is still a great school, but just in terms of program, if you go to a UCLA, you can still be on a huge platform, just like if you went to UConn, because of everything else that now exists that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. And with that, I think the level of competition has also increased because now you have talent in so many different programs across the country that it's very hard to remain a dominant entity in college basketball because you don't get all the prospects anymore. They're all over the country. So to your point, I think South Carolina will get a taste of that because of how much talent is everywhere in every conference because of just how much sports has changed from when UConn was running things 10, 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Well, in South Carolina itself, right? Great program. I believe that they can do it again, but they've had a lot of changes too, especially in post play. You know, they are missing Camila Cardoso. Definitely, for sure. And you can see that there's still a lot of adjustment in that area for them to be had. So I just think that, you know, it definitely could happen. Somebody could break their winning streak. And I think that, you know, it'll be better for them in the end. That's just personally.
And I think before we move on to Coco real quick, if someone breaks their winning streak and they still win the title, that is more of a justification for how dominant South Carolina is as a program and how dominant Dawn Staley is as a coach. Because to be able to have your streak broken and to take a couple of L's throughout the college basketball regular season and still come out on top is a testament to a very good basketball team and an excellent program. So it could, to your point, work in their favor all the way around. So
absolutely. And let's be clear. Of course, Coach Staley would love to have a team where they went out, or a season where they went out. Let's be clear. But she is looking for that championship, not this streak.
Okay? I know that's right.
So, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But all in all, we know that South Carolina is going South Carolina and they're going to be all right. For sure. For sure. But another person who's going to be all right is Coco Gauff because, listen, she claimed her first WTA Finals title over the weekend, becoming the youngest WTA Finals championship in 20 years. For her win, and people saw this everywhere, she had like the cutest little reaction to this, but she earned the largest single prize in WTA history with a sum of $4.8 million. Okay.
Money.
All the money. She actually, if you saw the clip in the press conference, she didn't know that she had won that much money.
Very cute. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cute. So definitely check that out. We actually posted that on the We Need to Talk social. So go over there and check that out if you want to see it. She's the first American to win the finals since Serena Williams in 2014. Great company to be in, obviously. She's the youngest winner since Maria Sharapova in 2004, rather. This year, Gauff was the year. 2004 was the year that Gauff was born. So just to give you, I know. I want to run off this screen right now after I just said that.
She was born in 2004?
Yes, ma'am.
What was I doing? I was in the 5th grade, I feel like.
I don't want to talk about what I was doing.
Oh my God.
Be happy you were in the 5th.
I literally just had a chill run up my spine.
Listen, I'm shaking. So
if you're on social media and you see the thing where it was like, the Cheetah Girls came out 20 years ago. No, it didn't. Shut up.
You're like, no. It was like
watching that live. I remember that, watching that live on TV.
Ashley, don't cry because you're going to make me cry. I see like you're laughing into tears. Don't do it.
I really am because it's like, where is the time gone?
It is.
What is happening?
Rolling right by us.
Okay, I'm back. 2004.
Woo, let's try and recover because that was hard. Okay, so following the win, and here's another thing that I love about her. She gonna say what she gonna say. Gauff took aim at everyone that called this season a wash because a lot of people did after winning the U.S. Open last season, which I think is insane, right? How you gonna call it a wash? She won the U.S. Open last season, but you calling this season a wash? But anyway, she said, "I just love to say I'm right. Specifically today, I got comments about how I was going to lose badly. So I was just like, okay, we'll see. It's honestly just liking the idea of just proving people wrong and letting
Mhm.
your racket do the talking. And so, yeah, I use that as motivation, as she should. So, with that win, she's now the first player born in 2004 or later to reach 20 million in career earnings. I mean, what does this mean to the sport of tennis, but also just like overall for her, what does
Yeah.
this win mean?
I will say this. I remember vividly my memories of watching Serena and Venus play um throughout my youth. I wasn't like a big tennis fan that came later in life, but I was always a Venus and Serena fan. And I feel lucky to be able to have witnessed them playing in real time and not have to rely on, footage and things I wasn't able to see in real time. And I just remember how meaningful their presence in the sport of tennis was to me and what it was to women and young girls across the country. And for a long time, I feel like, as Serena was coming towards the end of her career. Obviously, Venus is still playing and things like that. She hasn't officially retired. But I remember, people were saying, well, who's this next generation going to have to look up to? Right. Who's this next generation of Black and brown girls going to have to, idolize in the sport of tennis? And it's just really heartwarming and special to know you have Naomi and you have Coco and you have a few other, beautiful, just brown and Black girls doing it in the sport of tennis that are now going to be, and I'm not trying to compare them because there's only one Serena, but that this generation's Serena or this generation's Venus. And I don't mean that in terms of accolades and, being the best and the GOAT. I think that Serena is in a league of her own. I just mean in terms of impact. It's great that now this generation has what we had to look up to in Venus and Serena, and they have it in a bunch of other phenomenal young women. So yeah, the accolades and the money and all that's great, but it's even more special that like this generation has their own to look up to, and I think that's really cool because for a long time, that's what she was for us. So I think it's great that this next generation, like I said, has their own version of that.
Absolutely. And it took Serena like 2 or 3 years to win another major after her initial open title.
Mm-hmm.
So, Coco's even doing things that, the generation before her, or actually
Yeah.
there's a couple generations maybe before her, but technically the generation before her was doing. And so it's amazing to see her do that. And it's also amazing to see how, there's so much pressure to
Mm-hmm.
be a Black or brown girl in the sport of tennis. There's just not a lot of us, like you just talked about.
Yeah.
And so to see how she handles it, especially at the age that she's at, and how she is just this amazing like human being for people to look up to, that for
Yeah.
everyone, not just us to look up to, is just an amazing thing to see too, because it is hard to be in that position. It is not easy. And
Absolutely.
so I'm proud of her. I'm
Me
super proud
too.
of her. She really is my sister. You know what I'm saying? Like my little sister.
Sister in my head. I know that's right. Listen, keep killing it, Coco. We're rooting for you. There's a whole generation of young girls rooting for you. It is just the beginning. We're never gonna say your birth year on this show again, though. So I just want to put that out there.
I've
We're
erased it
never gonna
in my
bring that up
mind.
ever again. I'm just gonna let you know that we love you though, but we're not bringing that up ever
Nope.
again. So
Don't even know what it is.
nope, couldn't tell you. Anyway, it is now, I can tell you though, it is time for our favorite segment, and it's Connecting Changes Everything, presented by AT&T. This week on Connecting Changes Everything, we have two absolute trailblazers in media, in the NFL, in women in sports, and just beyond, Amy Trask and Andrea Kremer. This was a really cool moment for both of us. Obviously, you work with both of these women a lot closer than I do. It was my first time meeting them when we did this interview. But as somebody who's a journalism junkie and, just a women in sports connoisseur and learner, if you will, absorber of knowledge, I knew these names. I've known their accolades. And a lot of what I'm able to do in this industry, a lot of what you're able to do in this industry, a lot of what so many of us in this next wave are able to do in this industry is because of these two women and plenty of others. So it was very cool to sit down with them, pick their brains, hear their stories. And it was very eye-opening that I know that at times we can complain a little bit amongst ourselves and, in our groups of friends. But I think that when you speak to women who've really had to just go through the trenches to make it easier for us to even be in a position to complain about certain things, you're taken aback and you're just like, wow, thank you. Because it could have been a lot worse for us. And it's not because of you. So
yeah. And it's been an honor for me to work with each and every person, each and every host that is on We Need to Talk. And, I do the social for all the brands I started, or the social for the brand. And I do work with them, but sitting down with them was special because of the stories that we were able to talk about, and, the things that they went through. And I always knew they were trailblazers, but to actually sit there and listen to the conversation about, where it was and where it has come from, was truly an honor. So definitely take a look at our conversation with them. It's amazing. So check it out now. If we listed the accolades of the two women who are here with us right now, we would be here for the rest of the day. But what I will say is both of them have changed football forever and changed the NFL forever and blazed trails for all of us. So I'm sitting here with two amazing women. I honestly can't believe it, but please welcome Andrea Kremer and Amy Trask to the pod. Thank you so much for being here, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
This is
Love
great.
following along with your work. Love listening, and it's a treat to be here with you.
it's a treat to have you both here. I mean, and change journalism as well, just as a whole.
Everything.
And can I say to you, this, finally.
Oh, thank you. Make me emotional at the beginning of the pod. But no.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for doing this. And
Thank you.
You've been pursuing this kind of work, and I have a lot of admiration for you.
Thank you so much. And I know that, and I have cherished it from the moment that we met.
But this is my girl. So wait, speaking of meeting, all right, let's get it over with.
Okay.
So
first of all, you mentioned I'll let you talk about
Okay.
when you mentioned that she's a journalist.
We're taking over the conversation. Oh my
Take
God!
it over.
Look out.
Come on, take it over.
It's been a long day.
Well,
I'm here
you said
for
how
it.
cold you were.
So I'm with the Raider organization. Andrea is a journalist in the truest and best sense of the word.
Excuse me. She's with the Raider organization, the highest-ranking woman in the NFL. Oh,
That
by the
part.
way, okay?
My husband and I are watching Andrea
Oh.
deliver news on television, and he looks at me and says, "Do not ever let her interview you. She will make you cry." Because she's so good at what she does. She'd have all these players on, and they would just be sobbing. And so my husband's like, "Don't let her interview you. She'll make you cry."
Well, Amy and I met. We joke about it now, but I don't think it really was a laughing matter back in 1989. We were 10, of course, in 1989,
I
right?
laughed.
We met at an NFL owners meetings, Amy representing the Raiders and me, one of the journalists covering it. And we met in the restroom. We met in the ladies' room where...
Well, we were the only women there. I was the only woman at the NFL owners meeting. Andrea was the only woman in the area where the media waited to cover the owners meeting. And we both went to the restroom on a break. And I looked at her and I said, "Well, there's no line."
Yeah. And that sort of tells you what it was like when we were both really kind of breaking in.
It's funny, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
It's a good joke,
Right.
but it's also just very disheartening. But I think it also just proves how instrumental you both have been, also how instrumental so many women on this cast have been in making sure that we don't have to make that same joke.
And the reason we can laugh about it now is because there has been so much progress.
Yeah.
Now, I don't, people ask me all the time, are you excited? Are you pleased to see that there's more women now involved in the NFL than during any of your years? And I say, well, sure. But what's going to really be exciting is when things like that aren't newsworthy. Every time a woman is hired, I get that phone call from the press, are you excited? And my answer is, sure, but what's going to really excite me is when you're no longer calling me to ask me if I'm excited, because it's just the norm that people are hired without regard to race or gender or ethnicity or any other individuality, which has no bearing on whether one can do a job.
Right. And then ironically, so Amy gets those calls. You know the calls I get? Whenever there's anything that happens with a female journalist.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of times those aren't always the most positive things. And they call me for my response. And my response is probably as rote as yours, which is people are entitled to their opinions, but we're not going away. The genie ain't going back in that bottle. Female journalists, people working in and around the NFL are here to stay, and people have to deal with it. So, you know, Amy's always said that. She's always felt really strongly that she didn't want to be singled out for that. The man who hired her was renowned. I mean, that's part of his legacy, is hiring the first female chief executive of a team, the first African-American head coach, the first Latino head coach. These things aren't coincidences, and he hired the best people, and they just happen to be of different races, genders, and ethnicities. But I think today, there still is an emphasis on those things because the numbers aren't equitable yet. But hopefully we're making progress there.
Well, and the example I use when I'm talking, particularly to young people, Apollo 13, when those men were up in space, and there was a problem with Apollo 13, and I don't know if you saw the movie, but there's a scene where Ed Harris plays the character who walks into a room at NASA, and he dumps a bucket of bolts and pieces and parts on the table. And there's a team of people assembled around the table. And he says, using just these pieces and parts, because that's what they have up there, find a way to get them back to Earth. Do you think anyone on Apollo 13 gave a damn what the race or gender or religion or ethnicity of anyone around that table was? Right. They just wanted to get home alive.
Right, and so if we're talking pop culture, one of my favorite movies is Hidden Figures.
Right? Oh, great movie.
Right,
great
amazing.
Yeah.
And
great movie.
It's the same type of thing. All right, let's let them talk because it's their podcast.
No,
we have now just taken over.
Describe this 10-year window in one word.
The 10-year window of We Need to Talk?
Not just of the show, but of this industry, women in this industry. Explain that or describe that in just one word. What's the first word that comes to mind? Or multiple words.
I will use 2 words. The issue you just raised, the difference between when I joined the National Football League, and Andrea started her career, and now has been a seismic shift. And again, what's going to be truly exciting is when people are, as I said earlier, hired without regard to race or gender or any other individuality, which has no bearing on whether one can do a job. But the difference between when we started our careers and now, if you wanted me to give you 2 words, would be seismic shift. When I went to my first league owners meeting, I was the only woman in that room, and that was the case for many years. Well, now you've got a female, and I think the title is president or chief executive officer, I'm not sure which, in Carolina, and a woman who's a president in Las Vegas, and you've got women coaching on the field. Jeannie Bonk with the Chargers is a huge role there. CFO and COO, I believe. My point being, there has been a lot of movement. Is it enough? No, it's going to be enough when it's no longer a topic of discussion.
By the way, she always chafes when I say this. That's my preamble to you to start.
This is like when she's telling me I should start like curling up in a little ball.
No, she chafes when I say this, but I used to say to her, not jokingly, that if she was more involved in the football side of things and not just the business side of things, that maybe the Raiders wouldn't have lost as much as they did.
You should have seen Al's face when I said, you know what Andrea said?
No, but it's true. Because that is...
And she did say that to me, and it was
that
very
is one
meaningful.
thing that I think that's significant because, yes, we have female coaches and scouts and GM, well, no GM yet. Assistant GMs, Kelly Klein in Denver, Catherine Raish in Cleveland. But a lot of the women are on the business side of things. Of course, there's always been women. Where did they always park back in the day? They always parked women in marketing and PR, right? Now we're seeing more women in the C-suites, which is great. But I want to see more women really on the football side of things. I think that is the next mark to cross. There's a young woman in Kansas City in the scouting department who is working her way up. Her name is Madison Aponte. Her mother happens to be the senior vice president of football operations for the National Football League. And let me tell you something, there isn't nepotism working there. This isn't any Nepo baby. Madison has really, really worked to earn that job and to earn her position. And that's what I want to see. I want to see more women on the football side of things, not just on the business side.
I love that.
I love that too. And I actually want to go back to the seismic shift that you talked about. You have both created a seismic shift for us and for many women out there. And I just want to say that to you. And I just want to thank you for giving us the time today to talk all about
that
this.
That just gave me goosebumps.
And all that you have done so that we didn't have to do it. And I think that that's a big thing too, is that I think that you get so caught up sometimes in what you're doing and what's not working and what you don't have that you forget that it could have been a lot harder and a lot more difficult for you to even complain about those things if it weren't for the women that came before you. And both of you did that for us. So.
I don't know about you, but I never at that when we were
I want
the
to thank
only
them for that first. I
Go
just
ahead,
want to
thank
tell you
them.
how meaningful that was. What you said, it really did cover me in goosebumps. And you're doing the same thing for the next generation.
I appreciate
the two
that.
of you are.
Well, you're carrying the torch, so keep it up.
We definitely will.
No.
We're going to carry it. Wow. Like we said, an amazing conversation through and through. We actually have the full conversation on our YouTube channel. So make sure that you check out that whole conversation because it is everything that snippet was and more. So you definitely want to check it out.
We'll have plenty of other amazing conversations from that day. Lisa Leslie. We have, Renee Montgomery. We have Tracy Wolfson. I mean, the list goes on and on of all the amazing women that we were able to speak to that day who are part of the linear show, We Need to Talk. So definitely just search through it all. There's gems, and I feel like in every single conversation. So you definitely will walk away from each and every mini interview, if you will, with something, I feel like. So,
and that's another reason why you need to subscribe because we have a lot of those interviews out, but some of them we haven't rolled out yet. And you'll be able to get that notification. If you subscribe, it'll come straight to you and you'll be able to watch all of those amazing conversations that we had. So if you ain't subscribed, I don't know what to tell you.
Missing out.
You are definitely missing out. Well, we are not going to miss out on Lily Yohannes being on a member or playing for USWNT because she announced that she is going to represent the U.S. as a member of the USWNT. It's huge. It is huge for us. She holds Dutch citizenship, so there was kind of some back and forth on which place she was going to play. But she said, hey, the U.S. is my homeland, my birthplace, and where my extended family resides. These strong connections have driven me to honor my roots and proudly commit to U.S. soccer. So it is such a huge deal. The 17-year-old midfielder was born in Springfield, moved to the Netherlands in 2017 with her family. And, so obviously she has both, right? Signed her first professional contract at 15 years old. In 2023 and 24, had 5 goals and 20 appearances, and was the youngest player to start a women's league group stage game at 16 years of age. So huge for USWNT. What do you think about this announcement, Ashley?
I love it. I think it's also interesting as somebody who has dual citizenship, what that decision must have been like, because sometimes you are born one place, but so much of your life has been lived in another, or like you feel a stronger connection to one place over the other. And I always find it interesting how people in those positions come to the decision ultimately that they choose. And for her to say, look, the US is my home. I want to play here. I want to win here. That's amazing to have that kind of a love of country when you have two countries that you can love. But also, it's just, we're lucky to have her. And we're lucky that she made that decision. And that decision benefits us as a country and as a women's national team. So I think she's phenomenal. I mean, when I was 17, I was a hot mess. So y'all don't even, I'm not even going. That's a different conversation, different podcast. But the poise that she has, the killer instinct that she has, the talent that she has, and to know that it has only cracked such a small line in the ceiling that ultimately is her potential. It's really cool to watch. I'm very excited to watch her grow and continue to become a force in women's soccer, just all the way around.
And the competitor in me is glad that the Netherlands doesn't have her. So
yeah,
there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely
it's over. We're chanting that.
Definitely a fantastic addition to the team. Like you said, not an easy thing to decide. I'm sure she had people at every angle telling her what to do. But ultimately, she's playing for the team, that she wants to play for, and we're lucky to have her. So
absolutely
looking forward to watching her for sure.
We are going to be looking out for that, but you guys need to continue looking out for us, because right here, as usual, are all of our social channels and where you can find us. We're on every single platform. We are not done with sports. The sports calendar really has just begun. I know the WNBA season was
never stopped.
Whirlwind. The playoffs and the finals was a whirlwind, but there's so much more to talk about. And we're going to be sprinkling in some other things in between. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure those notifications are turned all the way up. On YouTube, you subscribe. And at the end of the show, scan that QR code if you are more of a podcast listener and you need your hands free. We get it. We got you covered there too. Keep it locked. Tap in with us. We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. But that's going to do it for us this week, for myself and Alicia. As usual, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
See you next week.